I wanted to talk a little bit about backing fabrics on the landscape course in particular. Now I start off doing my doodles on this 10-ounce cotton canvas purely because it's a plain firm fabric. I know it's going to behave well and I can forget about the fabric and just concentrate on getting the shapes right. If you don't want to buy this or haven't got any, just use something that's really firm and that's stiff. You could try spray starching some fabric to make it stiffer, or you could layer up other fabrics and use 505 repositional spray to make it firm. The other fabric I use is my 8-ounce, and I use this because if I was to layer up lots of different layers of fabric onto the 10-ounce, it would all become too bulky and it would be hard to stitch. So by using the 8-ounce, it's a little bit finer. I can afford to layer up fabrics and still get through it. Also, if I wanted to use, for example, a finer fabric for the sky, I could spray that on and it would stiffen up this fabric, so I'd get the look of a nice fabric but with the sturdiness of the 8-ounce canvas. For the card project, this one, we make a long sample. I've used hand dyed 8-ounce. Again, it doesn't matter what you use, but I would really suggest you use something that's a bit stiff, otherwise you're going to get into a pickle with it all puckering with all the layers on. Again, you could try starch to stiffen up a fabric, or again double fabrics over, but this is nice and easy to stitch on. I wanted to show you how I would use my linen look fabric for a landscape. This is was used on the front page to promote the course. If you'd like to use two colours, one for the sky and one for the land, I would recommend that you join them together in this technique where you lay one on top of the other. You get two layers, but they lay flat. If you do a standard seam where you join two together and open them out, it doesn't sit very well and you get a wider amount that's double. Just think about whether you want that seam in the middle, which will then be covered by your contour fabrics, or whether you want more sky or more land, and the seam will be hidden underneath the other fabrics. Because this fabric is quite floppy, I would recommend you spray it onto a backing fabric. Now this is a curtain lining, so I would do a mist of the 505 and lay this down on top. For the last bonus project, I used this lovely wool to create brooches from. Now I do also do the odd embroidery on it. To be honest, I've only just started using it and I love it, but I'm still finding my way with it. It's gorgeous, very, very expensive. It dyes beautifully, but you may find your machine struggles with it. The other fabric you could use is this coarse linen or flax, which I do like using, and it does paint beautifully and dye beautifully, but it creases very badly and it does pucker a little bit, so I would recommend that you do line that with something firm but thin, because again it's quite thick, so you may find with lots of layers on your machine struggles to go through it, but that's another option. If you don't like wasting fabric, I'm going to show you a cheap way of getting around that. This would be to use for your doodles or experimenting and just playing around with new ideas to get your hand-eye coordination correct. Get a normal piece of copy paper, your 505 repositional, a mist on. Now this is just cheap old scrap of curtain lining. Spray that down and I'll show you what it's like to stitch on. So I have my paper and my fabric. and you'll find that will give you perfectly good results for just playing around and doodling. My landscape course is open for enrolment now. It will start at the end of March, and enrolment will stay open for just a week until about the 10th of April. It's a 5-week course, but you can access the course for a full year. This is not an absolute beginner's free motion embroidery course. If you've got no experience of free motion, then I suggest you take my flowers and grasses course first, which is a really good introduction to free motion embroidery. We'll be covering all sorts of other techniques as well within this course, making yarns, couching, ripping fabrics, learning a little bit about landscape principles and perspective, making cards, and a little bonus project at the end for making a brooch. Look forward to seeing you in the course. Happy stitching!